technology of video games right now is still very primitive, and to be specific about it, in Scarface, when I would design the sound for a gunshot, and I was happy with the sound of the gunshot in my sound design studio, we would feed it into the game, and it was never predictable what the gunshot would actually sound like in the game, for reasons that I don't understand at all, other than the fact that you have a much lower audio sampling rate in the game than you do in film sound. But we would have to, essentially by trial and error, alter the original sound and then feed it into the game, see what that sounded like, and then realize, it doesn't really have enough impact. Okay, let's scurry away and try to design the sound in a slightly different way, feed that into the game. Sometimes the result wouldn't be at all what we thought it was going to be, and so it's much more a kind of trial and error process where sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're not lucky than it is in a film where the sound that I hear in my sound design studio is pretty much what I'm going to hear in the finished film, and I can rely on that.
That's very interesting.
Speaking of sound quality, how many theaters in this country do you think have what you would call good sound? I mean, do you go to the movie theater and just cringe? I mean, would it be 5, 10%? What do you think?
Well, the movie theaters are a huge problem. I think the two biggest things wrong with sound in movies are at the two ends of the process. Sound isn't paid enough attention to when the script is being written, and then sound isn't paid enough attention to in the theaters.
Great.
And you can say the same thing for visuals in the theaters. Theaters typically don't project enough light on the screen. There are usually half a dozen fairly major things wrong with the projection in any theater you go to, and usually at least that number of things wrong with the sound. And even going to a brand new theater doesn't ensure that it's going to sound good.
We just got to hang out at Skywalker.
Yeah, I guess you just have to see movies exclusively at Skywalker. So, and I think it's a huge problem for the movie industry as we know it, because I think unless movie theaters can find ways to keep people coming to them, there ain't going to be many of them around for a lot longer. And I think paying attention to the quality of the picture and the quality of the sound in the movie theater is one of the ways to keep people coming.
Now, when you and I had spoken before about your secret bag of tricks and things that you used, is there any tricks that you will reveal or sound design that maybe was taken from a source that people would never expect? But one time you told me that for an alien scream or for alien skin ripping, you used duct tape. Is there any tricks like that you could reveal?
Oh, sure.
You don't have to, but something that, you don't have to name movies, just something to give our audience an idea of, really organic material can create these otherworldly or loud, or what I mean.
Lots of things come to mind when I think about sounds that are in movies, sounds that come from places that you might not expect them to. In Polar Express, when the train arrives at the little boy's house and he's standing in the snow looking up at it in awe, wondering whether he should get on, the sound of the metal of the train, which is a kind of a metallic ringing sound, was made by bowing pieces of sheet metal with a violin bow.
Wow.
See, that's great. That's great.
And the principal sound of the chugging of the train in that movie is not actually a recording of a train at all. It's a giant metal shear, this huge machine that cuts pieces of sheet metal into whatever length you want them to be in. And this particular metal shear was about 6 times as big as a car, and it made this great, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk kind of sound, a really articulated mechanical sound that had a kind of pneumatic or steam sound as part of it. And it was just a natural to be in a train movie. So when the train engine chugs away, it's actually a metal shear that you're hearing instead of a train. But part of the magic of cinema is that you buy that it's a real train sound.
So you use whatever resource you have to make that sound.
Yeah. In a scene like that, you really need to be able to control every element of the sound. So if we'd just gone out, and we did go out and record actual steam trains for that movie, the recording that you get of the steam train engine operating contains lots of different sounds. You hear the chugging, you hear the steam, you hear the sound of the wheels going over the tracks, and if the director of the film says, at this moment, I really just want to hear those giant muscular chug, but not hear so much the sound of the wheels going over the tracks, if all you've recorded is the train itself, you have to sort of shrug your shoulders and say, sorry, we can't do that. And so as a sound designer, you need to make sure that every element of that train is controllable so that you can minimize or eliminate any one element at any moment and emphasize another element. And that's why we go to these great lengths to use diverse kinds of sounds, like a metal shear, as part of the train. It's not because we just want to be cool or use weird sounds. It's because it gives us a creative level of control that we wouldn't have if we had just recorded an actual train.
And do you play any musical instruments? Because it sounds like you guys just go take, common items out there and just, make music. It's like music to our ears, music for the film. Do you play any musical instruments just out of, personal hobbies?
No, I tried to learn guitar once and was never any good at it. I've always loved music, of course, like virtually everybody. But no, I'm not an instrumentalist. A lot of sound designers are. Probably more sound designers are musicians than not. But I don't happen to be one of those.
Well, thank you very much, Randy. I think that's all we have on this end. And you have a great radio voice, by the way, as I'm sure you know.
Thanks.
And thank you very much. I think this will be helpful. We're going to cut this together and do an intro and outro, and then let our audience hear what sound design is all about.
Great. It was fun to do. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us, Randy.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Randy Tom, ladies and gentlemen. There was our interview with sound designer Randy Tom.
And I hope everybody learned a lot from a sound designer because, like he said, there are more things a sound designer does than just bang on pots and pans.
Yeah, they don't just turn knobs. They're really seen as technicians, but this is a very integral creative process that is often underappreciated because you just accept it, except, when you hear loud gunshots or explosions. And I definitely learned something. I had no idea that altering a sound could get your rating changed. I mean, it's really, 50% of the movie. And he says that most people wouldn't watch a movie without sound. And I'd say not only sound, but music. I mean, a movie without music is rare, and I don't think it's really part of the process. All the art forms combined, and that's what makes a movie.
And we didn't talk about all the tracks that they have to lay down for different versions of the film, whether it goes overseas to China or it stays in Central Europe and then it comes here to the States. There's different tracks that they use for ratings and for different countries as well.
It's a big part of the process, so now when you watch movies, listen to the sound, respect the sound, and when you're choosing your theater on that Friday night, choose one with a decent sound system in honor of Randy.